Hey folks, this is the Nutty Knife Guy. This is the second take on this video. I had like major interruptions. Nobody bothered me all day. Tried to start filming. Everybody started bothering me. I'm talking about Emtek today, the Emtek Knife Company. Anybody who's new to knives might not have heard of Emtek, or if they have, not know anything about Emtek. Emtek is probably the biggest budget knife brand out there. They have hundreds of different models. A lot of them are like novelty things that come out that look like they come out of video games or movies or things like that. But some of them are quite practical. They don't have a really good reputation for quality, though. They just don't. And some of that is deserved. Right now, I have 6 Emteks in my collection. I've had others, and for the most part, I kind of like them. Emtek is a company that owns a lot of different knife brands. Ridgerunner and I think Timberwolf are all from Master Cutlery, the Master Cutlery umbrella. But anyway, and TacForce is also, I think, with Master Cutlery. But I have 6 Emteks right now. 4 of them are good. One of them I think is really good. I really like. And 2 of them are iffy in terms of quality. One of them is actually a real turd. But I wanted to do Emtek because they're kind of illustrative of something that I'd like to tell people who don't know anything about knives that are buying knives. And this really goes with buying anything, but this is a knife channel. You want to be careful about buying more quality than you need. Now, there are some people that when they have anything, it's got to be absolutely top notch, or they don't want it. All right, so it's got to be, Tops or SA or something at that point, or something that is like 150 and above for knives, or even more than that. And some people just don't want to buy anything that is considered budget. They like budget is a dirty word. They take budget knife to say junk knife. So, and Emtek is a company that's really good to illustrate that point, that budget knives can get the job done. And I go through this again, but it bothers me. I go on a lot of knife forums and stuff like that. And you'll get people that are new to knives, or are not even going to get into knives as collecting or anything like that, but they're just want a knife to go camping with, or to fish with, or hunting knife, or something like that. And they're interested in knives only as it relates to another activity. And there's always somebody on there that you've got to have brand X, because brand X is great. Save up your money and get brand X. Don't buy brand Z because brand Z is cheap. And but the thing of it is, what if you're going camping next week, you need a knife, and you don't have the time to save up for brand X, but you've got the money for brand Z. And Emtek has a lot of knives that are very reasonable, that'll get the job done. So here we go. Probably the best illustration of that point is the Emtek model Old Man Eyes. Just a moment. MT96. Now, this one I modified a little bit. I sharpened a false edge to practice back cuts. But you can go online, and I have used this. I've chopped with it and stuff like that, and you can see it's a little beat up in places, but it holds an edge very well. It's easy to sharpen when the edge does fail. It's got a nice, soft, rubbery grip, a metal hand guard, a substantial hand guard. And this is a beater knife. This will take a lot of punishment and keep going. I'm going to link to We All Juggle Knives. He did a review of this knife where he batons with it, and he does all kinds of pretty rough use, and it comes through okay. When I bought this thing a few years ago, it was $8.50, $8.50. And if you're just going for a quick camping trip at a campground and everything, or something like that, or a day hike, you've got a nice little thing. You can process firewood with this. It may be a little big for skinning small game, but you could get away with it. And maybe you bought a better Coleman lantern for your campsite with the money you saved by not buying something more expensive. And this is a knife that you're going to use once a year when you go camping. So you throw you use it, you sharpen it back up, you clean it up a little bit, you put it in the cheap crappy sheath that it comes with it, throw it in with your camping stuff over the winter, right? And you're golden. As opposed to spending a couple $100 on some other knives like a Tops or an Essie or something like that you're going to use once a year to do exactly the same job. Okay. Another one here along the same lines is the Emtek MT080. This was about a $10 knife. I bought it for my collection because I just love the way it looks. I like the pack of wood handle and steel bolsters and the satin finish and the recurve. I just like the look of this knife. But this is a good solid knife. And again, if you're just a day hiker or a fisherman or something like that, and you just need a knife to just do the knifey things that you do when you're hiking, carving, sticks to roast marshmallows, cutting fishing line, gutting your catch, small game, this will do. And again, if you're only going to use your knife through the summer when you're fishing, or your cookouts or something like that on the farm, or your vacation residence, cabin by the lake or whatever, $10. It will work. It'll do everything you need it to do. Clean it up, throw it in your pack or a drawer or your glove box or anything like that, and it does everything you need it to do. And you're not paying an extra $30, $40, $50 for a knife that you don't use all the time. And if you're not a collector, you're not going to appreciate. It's not going to accomplish anything for the extra money. And that's where brands like Emtek come in. Either you buy them because they look cool, or you buy them because you need a knife and you're not a knife guy and you don't care if you don't have the Gucci of knives. You don't care about knife fashion. You just need a knife that'll do knife stuff. Right? And then you have this one. This for just playing around with and looking cool, I think, is fantastic. I really like this thing. This was $20. This is the Emtek 2040, if I remember. No, 2004. And it's really, this is a fighting knife. You could probably get away with doing some camp work with it. But I mean, a little research online, and I found out that this, even though this looks like it's a full tang, it's not. It's got this thing where there's kind of a hollowed out square section coming off the knife, and then it's pinned through here and welded to the frame that makes it look like a full tang. But the thing of it is, even though it's not true full tang, I have done a lot of work with this. I've smacked it up against my war post out there, which for those of you new to my channel, you can watch the other videos. But it's a piece of fence post out there that I practice on. I hack on it. And I've bounced this thing off of there. I've done some chopping with it. It's been stabbed into a fence post repeatedly, not break. Holds an edge pretty well. Has a nice little recurve on it. Fit and finish isn't great, but it's not awful. And it was $20. And I have this thing. I'm sitting around TV. I'm the 99th guy. I'm sitting around. I'm watching a movie or something like that. I'm usually playing with a knife. And just sitting there and flipping it around, or just holding it, having a knife in my hand. This is one of the ones I do that with the most. This is one of my favorites for that. And as a fighting knife, again, if you're hunting wild boar, and maybe you don't shoot so well that way, and you find yourself getting gored, uh, you have this with you, uh, it will get the job done. It won't. It probably wouldn't break. I mean, any knife can break. You know, it depends on the conditions, but this will probably do you fine. And if you're a hunter that's not necessarily into knives, but you just need a knife for that activity, then you're spending $20 instead of 200. Okay. And this is another fighting knife. This is another one of my favorite ones to play with and practice with. Probably ripped off from a design from the great knife maker Bill Johnson. But this one is a little bit more expensive than the other MTECs. This one was about 40 bucks. And honestly, I have to say this about it: for $40, there are some issues with the fit of the scales. There's some gaps and things in there that for $40 is getting up to that point where that bothers me. But it feels great in the hand. It's very nicely balanced. And for a personal protection tool, perfectly all right. Now, the thing is, with this design, that's about all it's good for. Yeah, you could do a little carving with it for roasting skewers and things like this, but the thickness here is a diamond profile. The thickness is through the blade. I mean, through the center of the blade. It's not at the spine. You can't really baton with it. You could skin with it, I suppose. But this is a personal protection knife. This is a fighting knife. But the point is, it's a $40 fighting knife. I think actually a fairer price would probably be in the $30 range, but this will allow you to protect yourself against lizard zombie man ninja or a ne'er-do-well wanting to do you harm when you're out on a hiking trail, or in some areas somebody might actually carry this openly as a personal protection tool. I don't carry this because it's a little large for me to carry EDC, but I carry a fixed blade for an EDC personal protection knife. And this is perfectly adequate for that, and you're not spending $200 if you're not a knife person. If you just want something as a personal protection tool, either as a backup to a gun if you're into game that actually fights back, or if you carry this as your primary personal protection tool, it's fine. And maybe you can use that money to go to an instructor somewhere and get some training on how to use a knife for personal protection instead of spend that money on a knife itself, because this will do the same job as a $200 Tops or SA or whatever Benchmade, or one of the more expensive Bokers or Bokers, whatever. So that's fine. Now, having said all of that, you do have to watch the bargain brands, because I don't think that their problem is quality. It's quality control. Because I've had other MTECs that I've given away or sold or traded or whatever, and some of them were really bad. And sometimes the same model can have one that is really good, and then you can have another example of that same model that's really bad. Okay. This is the MTEC 2077, MT 2077. And this was a piece of crap. This is a turd. It came butter knife sharp. The handle is very hard plastic. It's poorly designed because it's small and too short. And it would not take an edge, no matter what I did. Diamond rod, Rada sharpener, Arkansas whetstone, India whetstone, coarse stone, smooth stone. Finally, I decided, screw it. I didn't want to. I've got this thing about having a dull knife in my collection. It bothers me. So I decided to take it out to a bench grinder. I don't have a belt sander or a belt grinder, but I did have a bench grinder out there that was here when we bought the. Yeah, it's out there. So I decided I was going to use a grinder and put an edge on it. And I was doing fine. The edge was getting there. And I was being very gentle on the grinder and very careful. When I got to the tip almost immediately heated up from the friction, melted, and fell off. I did profile it. I'm kind of proud of that job because it's hard to tell it was reprofiled, but it was reprofiled. Now, when I got to that, it didn't melt, so that tells me that the tip didn't get the greatest heat treatment in the world, and it wasn't just my lack of skill on a grinder. So the heat treat was screwed up, but again, there might be examples of this particular model out there that might be perfectly okay. Maybe the quality control guy on the factory in China or something like that had to take a whiz and didn't check this knife, or like 4 or 5 that went through the assembly line. So, but it's quality. The problem might be quality control. This was an awful knife. It is an awful knife. It's in, it's not even on display with most of my others. It's in a box with my the third tier of my collection. But so I mean, it's not perfect. But then again, it's perfectly possible for Ontario SA Cold Steel CRKT to have a bad example too. Much less likely because they have better quality control procedures, but it could happen. And this one, I'm pretty sure this one is going to turn out to be a turd. I think I have not tested it yet, but that test will come in the future. I bought this because I wanted to do the forms with basically a short sword. There were some training drills that I wanted to do with it, and I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on a thing, and I wound up buying something that was slightly more expensive, but much better than this, which I've already showed you in my video, 3 quick knife reviews. The Tomahawk Bounty Hunter machete, or Big Bounty Hunter machete, or something like that. Not really a machete, not ground like a machete, but that's neither here nor there for this video. Now this feels cheap in the hand. It feels low quality in the hand. And I noticed that as soon as I got it out. As soon as I got it out of the box. I forget how much, but this was like $12, I think. It had a cheesy little compass in the handle, which kind of also tells me that this is not going to be one of MTech's more stunning models when it comes to quality. I just got a knife, popped that out of there, and threw it away. And if you need a compass on a wilderness trek, get yourself a compass. Don't rely on some cheap one in the butt end of your knife. But the blade is long, the blade is thin, the steel is questionable. It's probably some sort of 440, but not all 440s are equal. I am thinking that one cut that doesn't have perfect edge alignment and it starts to take torque this way, I'm thinking I'm going to get a Benner snap blade. Probably a snap blade. The handle, again, it's really hard. It's not like on the 96 that I showed you. This is like a hard ABS plastic. It feels a bit like a toy. And I'm not certain if this is full tang or not. I can't find out if it's online, if it's full tang or not. If anybody else can find out, let me know. But when I do go out there and play with this, if it breaks, this would not surprise me. I would also not be surprised if I get edge roll on one of these things. I hope to be surprised. I could be surprised. Probably, spring's coming. I'm going to be able to get outside for reviews more. I'll get another camera because I'm using my cell phone to do this because my camera cracked out. And because of the coronavirus, the camera I ordered is going to come sometime, but we don't know when. Which is another reason I'm not outside. But this is very, very iffy. But my point about the MTech knives and the budget brands and everything like that is, first of all, I knew that this was not something that I was going to take out and use in, a wilderness survival thing where I'm going to go out and rescue Les Stroud because the Survivor Man is in trouble. I knew that this thing was probably going to be like practice, and when I tested it for this channel, I had a chance that I knew I was going to break it. And for that, right, I didn't need a top quality blade. Right? If I break this one during my test, oh well. Did I give you a model number on this one? This is the MTech 2007M. Uh, maybe this will be perfectly fine, and I'll still use it for practice. But this is not something that I would that even my personal comfort on, not even my life. This was not something I want to take out, and I knew I'm going to be able to clear brush for a campsite or process any kind of heavy firewood with it, or do any kind of heavy chopping. Just feeling it. This is not something I would take out for that type of thing. But for just the gee whiz factor, because this is kind of one of those like neat looking, kind of looks like a Cimptor type of thing. It looks pretty cool. And if you're just going to be doing some light work with it, why would you want to go out and buy something that costs $50 or $60 more? And like I said, that's one of the reasons I wanted to look at MTechs, because MTechs get a lot of crap in the amongst knife people, and some of it is deserved. They're not the highest quality. They're not the best constructed. Fit and finish are most generally okay at best. They come with really crappy sheaths. But for some people, that's perfectly okay. For the non-knife people that just want knives to do whatever they want to do by way of outdoor activity or camping or anything like that, not everybody is going to want or even need to spend a lot of money on a knife. And $50 can be a lot of money to some folks. Matter of fact, I think $50 is a lot of money to most folks. So I think there's people out there that need to cut MTech some slack. Now, the one thing that I think that MTech does need to be criticized for is they do tend to rip off designs from other companies that are better quality. They'll rip off designs from Cold Steel. They ripped off a design from Bill Johnson, obviously, with this one. And their marketing is sometimes questionable. Sometimes they clone other companies, and they don't really. They clone other companies' designs, and you might think that you're getting the quality of a high-end knife. And I wish they'd stop doing that. I really wish they would stop doing that. And I think that's my biggest criticism of MTech and a lot of the other budget brands is that they deliberately go out and make knives that look like really good knives from other companies. And there's another example here. And now this is patterned after the Bob Loveless fighter design, right? But it's really, the color scheme and the subhill and everything like that. It looks a lot along the lines of a Chrysler fighting knife, which is a $200 or $300 knife, actually $300, I think. Or Bulker makes a design that is this color scheme and this basic design. And so non-knife people may not know the difference. And I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem with honesty with the company. So there's that. But again, the whole thing about my MTechs is that I like most of my MTechs. I've got 6 of them. I really like 4. One of them is questionable, and one of them is a turd. So, just bear that in mind. And also bear in mind that these budget companies don't have any customer support. If you get them through Amazon or a place like that, you might be able to return them if they're not up to scratch. But you're not it's not like CRKT or Cold Steel or Benchmade or anything like that. You're going to be able to get on a phone and call customer service and listen, my knife's broken. Can I get a new part? Or can I, my knife was defective out of the factory. Can I get a new one? Can I get my money back? With MTech and Rich Runner and all these budget brands, you're stuck. If it is a turd, you're stuck with a turd. And like I said, unless you get it through Amazon like that, and Amazon will or other third-party seller will refund your money. I mean, MTech doesn't even have its own website that I can find, and that's another reason I think that they're cheaper, because they don't have this support apparatus behind them. A case in point with Gerber, I had a Gerber Icon, and I had been belt carrying it for a long time as my EDC folder, and I had taken the pocket clip off of it. Well, after a while, I was going to retire it and put it in my collection because I got a CRKT from my EDC folder, and I wanted to put the pocket clip back on it before I put it back in my collection, and I'd lost it. When I'd taken it off, I misplaced it. So I called Gerber and asked them for another pocket clip, and then I just called them another pocket clip. And basically, I told them the story about it, and they said, no worry, we'll just send you the pocket clip and the screws. Okay, you're going to get that from an established company like Gerber. You're not going to get that from a company like MTech. But see, but the thing of it is, that's where they save costs, not necessarily on quality, but on customer service. They don't have customer service, so they're not paying anybody to do that job, and their blades can be cheaper. So they're not, it's going to be as good as a Gerber or a Cold Steel or an Ontario or whatever company. But for a lot of people that aren't gear snobs, aren't knife snobs, or just aren't knife people, they'll MTech and the other brands like Timberwolf and everything like that, a Timberwolf or Ridge Runner or something, can be more than adequate. Some of those budget knives are actually very good knives. I mean, they can take a beating. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted the whole. Again, MTech is just a way to demonstrate that sometimes you don't need to buy quality to a level more than that. Excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Sometimes you just need enough quality in a knife to do a particular task, and you don't need any more quality than that. You don't need to buy a level of quality that you're not going to use. Right? I think it's kind of stupid to spend $200 or $300 for a Tops knife that you're going to use for 1 week out of a year when you go camping, and then throw in with your other camping stuff until you go camping again next year. To me, it makes no sense. And I think, like, again, a lot of people that aren't really into knives, they just want a knife that will get a job done and not cost them a fortune. And that's where MTech comes in. So the people that just malign MTech, and they'll malign anybody that buys MTech, and some of them it's patriotic because they don't want to buy anything made in China or whatever. And I can understand that to a certain extent too. But there are some people that just need a knife for whatever activity they're going to do, or whatever they're going to use it for. They need it quickly, and they can spend $15 or $20 to get a knife that will be adequate for whatever they're doing, instead of waiting, saving up for a couple of months to buy a knife that is better than they need it to be. And like I said, it's the same thing about anything else. There's a point where you're buying something for a status symbol. Nobody really needs a Lamborghini car, right? Unless they just really appreciate well-made, fancy cars, and that's fine. Or two, they want it as a status symbol. There are people out there that will spend $200 on a Benchmade folding knife to carry EDC because they want people to say, hey, look, Benchmade, it's a status symbol, right? And then they're going to open the same boxes the same way as a guy with a $10 MTech. A $10 Tac Force folder. One guy cares what wants to have the prestige of having a Benchmade. The other guy doesn't care. He wants to open boxes. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those. But don't look down on people that carry the Tac Force or the MTECs. And you don't necessarily have to be too impressed with somebody that's carrying an expensive knife either. Right? There's nothing wrong with either position. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Myself, when it comes to EDC folders, right now I got a Spyderco Tenacious in my pocket, $40 knife. Spyderco is kind of a prestigious brand, yeah, but that's not why I'm carrying it. I'm carrying it because it's light, it's thin, and it cuts stuff. My EDCs are separate from a collection in my mind. The EDCs I buy because they perform. I don't care what I usually don't care what they look like. I think Spydercos are ugly. But you know, it's just you have to think about why you want the knife, what you're going to use it for, and how much quality do you need. Does somebody need a Maserati? No. Does somebody need a Ferrari? No. They usually buy them because one, they can afford them. Two, they just might appreciate cars as an engineering work of art, or they want it as a status symbol. That's okay. And it's the same with knives. You pull out, let's see here. What do I got handy here? A Gil Hibben knife. Beautiful knife. Cost about $60. Right. Gil Hibben's pretty respected. This is very well made. Right. But ultimately, and I appreciate it as a collector. This one also will work really well. But I appreciate this as a knife enthusiast. But then on the other hand, I've got this combat ready model, the CBR 111. Right, a very similar knife, much less expensive, but will do exactly the same job. So, I mean, now both of these are dedicated fighters, and both of these will be fine for spilling the blood of a lizard zombie man ninja who has a lizard man zombie ninja who has invaded your home, or a human predator that has threatened your life or limb to the point where you think he needs to spill more blood than he can spare. They'll both do that job. So, I mean, a bit of a rant, and maybe I'm beating a dead horse on the whole budget thing, but more and more, I just see these conversations going back and forth on the internet about knives, because I read a lot about knives on the internet, and they actually become personal. They'll say, well, you're not patriotic if you buy a knife from China, or you're just stupid if you buy an MTEC. All MTECs are junk. They won't work, or you're a dumb kid, or a snowflake, or whatever they want to call these people that insist on want to carry a less expensive blade or own a less expensive blade, and it just drives me crazy. I've got some examples here from MTEC, the king of the budget blades, that are perfectly adequate for what knives are supposed to be used for. What they do, what they're designed to do, and they do it economically. They do it affordably. I really like a lot of my MTECs. I will probably buy other MTEC brands in the future, MTEC knives in the future. Got a couple of bummers. And as I said, that's going to happen with budget companies. But writing off the whole company, or questioning a person's intelligence because they have a budget knife, come on, gotta be better than that, folks. If you're a knife guy, you got to bring knife people into the community, right? Yeah, and some of those MTECs are pretty cool, you can say, to this new kid that's into collecting knives. Some of those MTECs are okay. But, it's kind of a ripoff of this Cold Steel design. And the Cold Steel design is more expensive, But it looks cool, like the MTech. Like the MTech ripoff. And it's a little better. Educate them, bring them in, and you can tell them the truth. Yep, if that's all you're going to do with it, if all you're going to do with a knife is take it fishing, that MTech will do you fine. So that's my rant for the week. Hopefully I'll get outside and do a test of something next week. Hopefully my new camera will come. Anyway, I will leave you with my admonishment too. Draw your knives only in just purpose. Sheathe them only with honor. And remember that without knives, life would be dull and pointless. I bid you goodbye.